Hey there, and welcome back to What Am I Modeling? Today, my guest is Dr. Piper Gibson, and she is a really fascinating person, not only in what she does, but also her personal experience. So, she was written off by conventional doctors when her son developed a tic disorder. And through this endless roller coaster of medications and doctors, she was never given answers to why her son was having tics or any solutions for what to do about it. And for any of you out there that have a child or a family member who has a neurological disorder or a disorder that can be, let's just say it, embarrassing in public, okay? Maybe you know someone who has Tourette's and you're out shopping and they have a flare up and they start screaming at people, or they fall to the floor with tics and seizures, their eyes blink, right? Maybe they have stutters, maybe they have ADHD. And when you're a mom and you're trying to deal with that and you're being told and shut down by everyone around you, one, being judged by other parents, by being judged by family members, by doctors telling you there's nothing you can do, and in her case, that it was just a behavioral issue, essentially, that it was her fault. This story is about how she stood up to the conventional world, had a ton of resilience, trusted her instinct, and had the chutzpah to go after something different for her son. And after she discovered how to minimize her son's tic disorder, she went back to school so that she could help other families do exactly the same thing. Piper is a gem. She's authentic. She's real. And now she works with kids who have neurological tics, sensory processing disorders. She works with leaky gut, cyclical vomiting disorders, anxiety, poor detoxification, candida overgrowth, mood swings, lack of focus or concentration. Maybe the child is having bad grades. And she works with the entire family to deal with this holistically on every single level. So if you've ever been told in your own life or for your child that you should just take a pill and everything will be fine and it doesn't pose a solution, this is the interview for you. So it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Piper Gibson. Well, welcome to the show, Dr. Piper Gibson.
Thank you, Tricia. I'm really excited, or should I say Dr. Pingel? I'm really excited to be joining you today.
You know, there are so many different things that I want to dive into with. But first of all, I want people to understand what you do because you serve, I guess, what's a pretty small population of people, but the impact of what you do on their lives is life-changing.
What I do is I work with families to really get to the root of what is going on with their children's neurological conditions. So, tic disorders, Tourette's, ADHD, anxiety. We are looking at all of these kind of childhood issues, OCD, that are really impacting their neurological health and a lot of their behavior. But our goal is to really get to the root and figure out what's driving that in the first place.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, like I was saying before this, it's like you're in a grocery store, your child has Tourette's, they start swearing at somebody, right? And there's this whole combination of loving mother part of how do I help my child, the embarrassment part of how does this impact everyone around me. So the fact that you're on a show called What Am I Modeling? I mean, you get it. Like your people are judging you all the time on, oh my gosh, why can't they handle their kid? What's going on? Why is the kid acting out? And I think this is such a powerful thing because I think it applies even past all of these conditions, which, by the way, the the rates of autism, ADHD, OCD, tic disorders are going through the roof. We have problems here, folks. And I'm going to guess that anyone listening out there knows somebody, if you're not dealing it with yourself, with your child, with somebody who is. So I think this is going to be such a powerful discussion about how do we handle this as moms? How do we handle this as physicians? How do we look at neurological disease in children? So you had said in your story that basically, I want to hear this story, something to the effect of your child has a tic disorder or had a tic disorder and was having a tic, and a physician told you that you should just go spank them and it would go away. Please tell me this story.
Yeah. So Early on, when my son was first diagnosed, we were sent to the neurologist. It's kind of a typical pattern. You go to the pediatrician, they say, oh, it's just a tic disorder, ignore it, they'll grow out of it. But we're going to send you to the neurologist just to be sure. So, the typical experience in a neurologist's office for somebody who has a tic disorder or Tourette's is really primarily observational. They're not hooking you up to the machines and giving you an MRI. There's no diagnostic tools. They're not running blood work. There's basically nothing. It is purely observational.
Hmm.
So, in the moment, my husband and my son are there, and he's laying on the floor of the neurologist's office while we're talking. And the neurologist is watching my son on the floor, just looking at him, and he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "I think he just needs a good spanking." He's like, he goes, "I think it's behavioral. He just needs a good spanking." And I am like, jaw to the floor thinking, what on earth? This child cannot control his body movements. I live with him and you're telling me to just spank my son? And that was really, really the catalyst for me to be like, I'm going to figure out what this is, because this is not, one, being told to ignore it by every doctor you ever go to is so disheartening. It makes you feel so hopeless. But
Yeah.
two, to have someone else then turn around and say, oh, you just need to spank your child. That was a catalyst for me.
I just wonder, like, how many moms walk away from that and believe it and just give up on their child? Did he have tic disorders from the time he was born? Did he always have that? Or what was the
No.
development of that?
So the tic disorder was very well, I would say it was progressive but sudden. So when I say that, it's because at the time when things started to pop up about the age of 4, we didn't know what we were looking at. The first thing he started doing was this rapid eye blinking. And so we took him to the doctor and, oh, it's allergies. We're just going to give you some Zyrtec. So then, that was medication number 3 or 4 at that point. But um it was just allergies. And so when I look back now, I can say, oh, all of these things from like day one, like when he was born, he had low blood sugar. They gave him sugar water. Then he had reflux and he took Zyrtec. And then he had chronic ear infections. He took antibiotics. So I can see all of these things progressively. But what had really happened is we came home from a family vacation and we woke up, and in the morning he was just jerking and twitching and could not control
Mm.
his movements. We started Googling, we went to the pediatrician, we were like, what is happening? So at age 6 is when he really got this official diagnosis. When he was 8, we got an official diagnosis of PANS. So PANDAS is that neurological caused by strep, and PANS is like, basically everything is causing your immune system to go wacky.
So tell people what PANS and PANDA is.
Yeah, so PANDAS is pediatric neural inflammation caused by strep. PANS is pediatric neural inflammation that can be caused by anything. It can be caused by foods you're eating. It can be caused by parasites, heavy metals, environmental toxins, biotoxins. So it's got different drivers. But what I find is that you get a lot of kids who kind of have a combination of PANS and PANDAS. They have the strep that's really causing a lot of anxiety, behavioral tic issues. They also have all of these other drivers like food sensitivities and parasites and heavy metals that are really causing this kind of perfect storm that their immune system is just going crazy. And we know from studies when we look at tics and Tourette's is that the more studies come out on immune system function, we really see it. The key is dysregulated immune system. So what's causing that dysregulation?
Yeah, and you're saying strep, like the bacterial, like that most parents
Yes.
are familiar with, right? And I don't think most parents are familiar with PANS and PANDAS, right? Because it's to me, it sounds a lot like when you're looking at an autoimmune disease, and it's like, okay, you have an autoimmune disease. Well, what does that mean? Nothing. It just means that there's all these things out of whack, and there's all these things that could be causing it. And so, I mean, I can't imagine there's very many specialists in the world that look at this type of disorder, right? It's mostly dismissed as behavioral, and or they're put on 80, I would imagine they're put on medications for ADHD. They're being put on either stimulants or sedatives or antidepressants or anti-anxietals. I mean, is that the standard course of action for these kids?
Believe it or not, the standard course of action is to put them on things like blood pressure medications and antipsychotics, because most of the medications prescribed for tic disorders are prescribed off label. And Cincinnati Children's Hospital tells us medications prescribed for tics rarely reduce tics more than 50%. They will still be obvious to you and the people around you, and they will not cure tics. Like, these are what we're being told. But you go into the doctor's office with high hopes. Oh, I'm going to get this medication and my kid's going to be normal again. But you're
Yeah.
never told They don't cure tics. They don't reduce the symptoms more than 50%. So parents really typically are told, ignore it. Hopefully they'll grow out of it. And if they don't, and if symptoms get worse, we're going to give you these medications. And there's
That won't work.
that won't work. And here is the kicker. This is the biggest kicker is that so many of these medications that are prescribed, one of the major side effects is uncontrollable body movements. So, why are we giving medications to kids with uncontrollable body movements that are going to cause uncontrollable body movements? It makes absolutely no sense.
Are they acting on the same mechanism in the brain? Is that why?
That is the suspicion, but when we're looking at it, we're using a medication to focus on the pathway or the system within the brain. Tic disorders, in my opinion, are not purely neurological. Tourette's is
Right.
not purely neurological. There are other drivers. So when you start to look at, okay, is it a dysregulated immune system? Using a medication that might work on the basal ganglia in the brain may not do much because maybe it's your gut, maybe it's the foods you're eating,
Mhm.
maybe it's the biotoxins you're exposed to.
Yeah, there's so many different things. I mean, obviously, we're familiar with all these different things, the
Yes.
gut health, the viral loads, the toxins, immune dysregulation, but in the general pediatric world, that is not what they're looking at. So
Yeah.
you're sitting there, your child's on the floor, you're told to just spank him more, and obviously something in you, Piper, must have went, "Uh-uh,
No.
not happening. I know something's wrong with my kid." So what happened from there?
Yeah, so I knew, it's like, you have this mother's intuition. I knew in my mama's soul, I was like, there is something else going on. I'm going to figure it out. So it really then sent me down the rabbit hole of how do I go back to school and figure this out? And, I looked at like, there's a medical school here. I looked at going that route, but
Mhm.
it's failed me so many times with his health. Why am
Yeah.
I going to go that way? So I went the other direction. I went holistic, natural, really just why I was trying to find a connection. I'm one of those people that's just always asking why. And I'm like, why? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And I think that that is really what made me successful in this area is because I was so able to get granular with why is this happening for him. So yeah,
Why
I went
was
back
it?
to school to relearn everything I thought I knew about health and wellness.
And what was it?
Um, with my son,
Yeah.
was a combination of things. So definitely, he can tell you now, he's 20, but he
Mhm.
can tell you gluten, dairy, huge drivers for him. Sugar is a huge driver for him. So his very food based.
Mhm.
He had been exposed to mold. We were living in a brand new home that had mold at the time. So there was the biotoxin piece. He had so much damage to his gut from all of the years of antibiotics for ear
Okay.
infections. He had a candida overgrowth, like raging. It took us a long time to get it under control. So, really, he had so many factors that we had to work with simultaneously to get
Mhm.
him back on track. And, one of the big things is we had been sent for sensory processing disorder to occupational therapy. And in this process, we had run genetic testing and figured out what he needed genetically because he was predisposed to aggressive inflammation based on genetics. And within 6 weeks, we were kicked out of occupational therapy because knowing his genetics and applying the right supplements for his genes completely changed his behavior. His teacher was calling me, "What did you do to this
Wow.
child?"
And
Mhm.
how is he now at 20?
He's great. So if he is mindful, he knows these triggers. But, he just became the youngest firefighter on the university crew. So he is a firefighter. He's driving the ambulance. He's going to school. He's doing all of these things, driving a car, all of these things that when he was 6, when he was 7, when he was 8, when he was 9, we were like, how is this child ever going to function in society?
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
And I want to commend you as a mom
Thank you.
for fighting for your kid, because I'll tell you, when your kid's doing something in public, you're being judged, everyone has to weigh in on what are you doing? You're doing it wrong, blah blah blah. And you have to put up an armor to the outside world and trust your intuition. And when you were filling out the interview stuff prior to the show, I asked you for some words that like resonated with you and your journey. And you said resilience, which you had to have a crap ton of that, girl. So I
Mhm.
just want to give you a
Thank
ton of
you.
credit for that. Trust, which I think the majority of us as women, we don't trust our instincts. We
Mm-mm.
just don't. We listen to everybody else when we know, gosh darn it, deep down, we know something's not right. Intuition, same thing. That trust and intuition go hand in hand. We ignore that. We ignore that little thing in our ear. And because we're told we're wrong and we believe it. And we'll get back to that.
Okay.
Empowerment, which is what you do every single freaking day and what you're doing right now for everyone out there, for every mom, every parent listening right now who has a child who is laying on the floor with some sort of neurological disorder where somebody has told them there's nothing they can do. You are empowering these people. And that just absolutely warms my heart. And then transformation. Watching, God, as a mom, I'll just, even my
Yeah.
child doesn't have a serious disorder, and watching the transformation of him growing into a man is rewarding enough, but to put that effort in, I just want to commend you.
Thank you.
I hope that more people follow your lead on this and really lean into their intuition, because I can only imagine there were many people who told you were ridiculous.
Oh.
In your family, probably too. I mean, like friends, family saying, it's not the food, it's not the gluten, you know? So how did you deal with that? One, with dealing with accepting your son for who he was in that moment at that time, because sometimes they are gonna have sugar and they are gonna have a tic or something that happens in public and you have to witness it, like you're in the grocery store and they scream at the, profanities like with Tourette's at places. Like, you are going to be in those situations and face that judgment. And then also facing the judgment of the people around you, the naysayers that said, this is a waste of time, this is a waste of money. How did you as a human and a mom do that?
Yeah. Well, one, it's not easy, but I think when you have a child who's just so chronically ill, there is a piece of you that is just like, you have to try, like, you have to do this. So we could have looked at all of this stupid information on the internet, and which is so disheartening. Like, there's no hope. It's just genetic. There's nothing you can do. Oh, food doesn't matter at all.
Mhm.
And I just knew that I had to try. So, we would go to birthday parties, we would go to Boy Scout events. I would take all of his food, I would prepare it, I would pack it, I would take it. We go to a birthday party, we are having a gluten-free cupcake and a dairy-free cupcake. And I had to give it this 1000% effort for his sake to really get a gauge on, is this going to work? So, one, it was like I knew I had to try and I was willing to change everything to try it and see if it worked. But two, I have abandoned my cart in Target a multitude of times because somebody is having a fit on the floor, screaming and yelling, like mood swing to the max. And I'm like, okay, yes, people are staring at us, but I'm like, okay, we're going to leave this cart full of things here and we are leaving the store. We are walking out.
Yeah.
So, I don't care if you have a Minecraft toy in there, too bad, because you're not calming down. We're going to leave. And so, we've been to movie theaters where we couldn't really go to movies because people would, comment, shut up, be quiet. He's making too much noise. And so it was really a lot of kind of adjusting, trying things, definitely like we were our own best experiment at the time. But I think resilience is we just had to get knocked down and get back up again and just get knocked down and just get back up again.
Yeah, and I always wonder why so many people just accept and abandon it, going back to that doctor's room. And I do wonder, like, is it as women that we don't have the self-worth to believe that we truly know? Were we raised that we're smart, we can do anything, but not really. You don't really know. You can do anything you want. You can be a mom, you can work, you can do all this stuff. But then when our intuition kicks in, we suppress it because we feel like, I don't know if we're not worth it, we're not strong enough for it. And I'm sure you see this every day with parents when you speak to them. I mean, by the time they come to you, they've obviously have some sort of resilience and grit, thank heavens. But do you have any, like, have you noticed any patterns? Like, I always wonder, why is it that we don't trust ourselves anymore?
I think it's a multitude of things. I think you have all of this noise from, the internet and people around you. And like there's all of this noise. And when you start to research, some of that research out there really makes you feel hopeless. So you're like, there's no hope. This is hard. And this makes it hopeless. But I also think that, and I do see this very often, is that you have a mom who is like, I know something is wrong. I'm following my intuition. But dad or
Yeah.
partner is more of, I've looked at the studies on the internet. There's just no hope. Just ignore it. That says diet's not going to work. And so I
Mhm.
think a lot of times that you get a doubting Thomas on the other side. So you got the angel and the devil, and you're like, no, I know something's wrong. And then, over here, they're like, no, we're not going to put that money into it. We're not going to make these changes. It's too hard. Or you have divorced parents who, like, mom is doing all the right things, and then they go see dad, and dad's like, "Woo, we're gonna do whatever we want." So, I do see it, and it is disheartening, but I will tell you, like, what you were talking about with the transform piece is
Yeah.
watching these kids, not just my own, but the clients who come in the door who completely just transform, some of them in weeks, some of them in months, some of them it takes a little bit longer. But to see, like, my Australian client who wouldn't let his mom open the window because he was so embarrassed of the noises he was making, to a year later being tick-free and a state track champion in Australia, when previously he couldn't run to save his life. His mom was like, he would have died trying to run. But we
Yeah.
made all of these changes, so it's incredible to watch them transform, like, really take center stage in their own lives.
That is so cool.
It's very cool.
That is so cool. I don't even have a better word for it. That's just so cool. There's a lot of research out there that says, and I want to know your thoughts on this. It's 20% genetic, it's 80% lifestyle. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with it on so many levels. Um, And when we talk about genetics, it's like, okay, you may have this predisposition, but if you're doing everything right in your diet and lifestyle, that really never comes to fruition. There's a Netherlands study about tics and Tourette's and OCD where they looked at mom and dad and sibling, and they looked at the kids. And what they found is that a huge majority of these kids had a parent, mom or dad or sibling who had an autoimmune disease. So
Mhm.
when we look at the study of it's dysregulated immune system,
Mhm.
and we talk about that genetic piece with autoimmune, yeah, you're getting your genes from your mom and your dad. So the reaction you're having, yes, it's immune based,
Yeah.
but if we do the right things, we can turn off that reaction, just like with an autoimmune disease.
It's so cool.
It's so cool.
I have the genes for celiac. I don't have celiac disease, however. Um, Now, I stopped eating gluten in my 20s because I didn't feel well when I ate it. Bu and I've never had it since. I mean, unless someone snuck it to me, and by the way, I know right away. Um, but it's interesting because people would say, "Well, you have the genes for celiac, so you're celiac." No, I'm not. I'm actually not. Um, but it's so true. We can change genetic expression
Right.
by the environment. And there's so many. I know you do a lot of genetic testing. I think you do a lot of genetic
I do a
testing and
lot. Yeah.
such, right? And so a lot of people put 100% weight on what that result is. And I wanted you to speak a little bit to how that result really plays into the whole picture, because I've had many people over the years say, well, I have the gene for Alzheimer's, so I'm just going to get it. Well, I have the gene for this, so I'm just going to get it. Well, and I'm like, well, that's not the right mindset, number one, because if you tell your brain you're going to get it, you will get it.
Yeah.
But also with 80% of it being more modifiable, what are your thoughts on that? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, let's do. I really feel like when I look at the genetic piece and the diet, lifestyle, environment pieces, we use the genetics as a roadmap, right? Like, you're
Mhm,
not just going to get in your car and drive to Austin, Texas without having a clear direction of where you're going, right? You're going to be like, okay, here's my Google Maps or my Rand McNally
mhm.
or whatever. You're going to know where you're going.
Yes.
And so we're using the genetics this way because we can really start to look at, like, well, what's the right dose recommendation for the right person at the right time? Like, when do they need it? So, if you have someone who has the celiac genes, yes, like I have them, you have them. Like 80% of people who have celiac disease also have them, but you also have 20% of the population who doesn't necessarily have them, but they have celiac disease. So just because you have the gene doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it does increase your risk.
Mhm,
So, it's just like you and me, like giving up the gluten. But when we look at that genetic piece, it's like, how do we use this as a roadmap? Okay, we're looking at all of your inflammatory genes. We know that you're going to be more predisposed to this aggressive inflammation within your immune system. So you're exposed to foods, pathogens, toxins, right?
mhm.
You might have a greater risk. But if we know this, hey, you're at this greater risk of aggressive inflammation,
Yeah.
what can we do in your diet, lifestyle, environment to adjust that so that when you are exposed to something, it's not like, woo, off the charts?
Mhm.
we are modulating that environment.
It's so interesting. I have the MTHFR mutation, homozygous, and my dad passed before we were able to check him. Pretty certain he
Oh,
might have been homozygous. He died of cardiovascular disease early. Um, and, they didn't check at that time. They didn't even check CRPs at that time, right? They just said, go home. Here's your cholesterol medication. Take care. See you next year.
yeah.
But it was interesting because I didn't know I had that mutation until many years later. And everyone said, oh, well, do you have high blood pressure? I didn't. Well, did you miscarry? I didn't. But one thing I've always done my entire life is I've eaten a ton of folate rich
Foods.
vegetables. I eat greens all the time. So I had basically modified my genetics by
Yes.
supplementing, right? And now I take activated folate and methylated B vitamins every single day for the rest of my life because I know that if I can keep that pathway going, my glutathione pathway will be good and everything will be fine, right? But you're right. It's like if we don't look and figure that out, why would I wait until I have high blood pressure and I have all these symptoms to find out what the problem is and then I have a big backup in the pathway? You know, I went to med school primarily because I just loved biochemistry. I loved physiology and biochemistry. I just loved that. I was in veterinary medicine and I would look at labs and how I could tell what was going on with this cat when the cat couldn't tell me based on the balances between the labs, which is fascinating. And yet we go to med school, conventional doctors go to med school as well. We learn all the biochemistry, we learn all the triggers, we know what MTHFR is. If you don't know, sorry, we'll put it in the show notes, but they know what all these things are. But then when they go to treat, they never look at it again. They never do the testing to look at the
Mhm.
biochemistry. They don't take the genetics. They learn it all, but they don't use it. And I think if they went back to their roots of what made them so passionate to go to med school in the beginning and started to do some of the things that we do in looking at those pathways, can you imagine how many people would feel better and reduce disease?
So many, but you have to look at the fact that things like genetics are considered preventative, and conventional and traditional approaches are more diagnostic based. So you have a hard time getting this support for prevention when we're over here making all of this money doing all of this diagnostic. Let me give you a diagnosis instead of really like, how do we narrow this down? And so this is where my love for genetics really came in because it not only changed my son's life, but then it changed my life and my mom's
Mhm.
life and my sister's life. And
Yeah,
it was so fascinating to watch how we can use this roadmap. I still like, okay, my son is a firefighter now. Okay, let me pull out his genetics. What's this going to be like when you're exposed to these toxic chemicals that you're
right.
spraying, right? What
Yeah.
do we need to do to make sure that you're detoxing well? So we can really continue to use that over and over and over again.
Oh, that's so true. I didn't think about that. All the benzene and the smoke,
Mhm.
right? And being able to metabolize that out and making sure that the glutathione level. Oh, you're getting me so excited. That's not what this show is about, but look how excited you got me right there, right? That was just fun right there. That was fun. That was fun. Okay, I'm going to ask kind of a controversial
Yeah.
question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But I want to know with COVID, did you see a massive increase in neurological and tic disorders following that due to the immune dysregulation?
We saw a lot of it. Yes, we did see a lot. Um,
Because it's very different
it is
type of
different.
virus, right? In it impacting the RNA. I mean, whether you're talking I'm not even getting into the vaccine versus natural immunity, but either way, it messes with
Yes.
genetics,
What I,
essentially.
what I found is really that when it came to COVID, the kids in general were way more resilient,
Yeah.
and that it was the moms and dads who were like, "Oh my gosh, I got COVID and I've got this long COVID and I can't get rid of it." Whereas the kids were just like, we got it. We're going to bounce back pretty well. Like they may have seen a flare in their ticks,
Mm.
but it didn't really kind of linger. It was really like, okay, one and done. So it was really interesting to see what the parents who were more predisposed to the autoimmune issues go through versus the kids.
Yeah, it is so interesting because when you talk about pans and pandas and we're talking about the reason why things would kick off, um, I see a lot more autoimmunity now, right?
Yeah.
Than I used to and so I just was curious. I always wonder if people saw the same thing. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. So you had said something that I so resonated with You said perfection is a trap that keeps you from healing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, I think it is because I think maybe you see me and what we've done, and you think you have to do, like, it has to be perfect. And I think you have to do what fits you. And so, yes, like we're giving you, if you work with us, we give you guidance and guidelines and plans and protocols. But we also have to take into account this individuality piece of it, right? Because what's perfect for you may not be perfect for someone else, but we have to look at like it's so detrimental to go into this with I have to do this perfectly because
Well,
it just I
yeah.
think it makes it so much harder.
Well, and like when you were talking about, you took the special cupcake to and it's hard. And it is really hard. I mean, I remember my oldest pretty much breezed through. He was fine. My youngest was a little neurologically overactive. I'll say that. Um, And when he would go to preschool, their snacks were goldfish, and I, like, refused. I was like, "No, you're not eating that." And I would have to pack special things and go there, and everyone looked at me like I was the crazy mom, and all my friends were like, "You're nuts. Why are you doing this? Just goldfish, like, what's a big deal?" And I was trying to explain, well, the goldfish, they weren't good before, but they're even worse now than we were kids, they're adding more stuff to it. So a lot of people give up because they don't wanna be that parent.
Right. They don't want to.
They're that perfect pair that, and you're right, because it's kind of like this, you wanna be perfect, whatever that means. I don't even know what perfect means. There is no definition of perfect, really. There's none. It's perfect doesn't exist.
Right.
But, you wanna be perfect, but then you figure if you don't do it perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. And I think, I always say 80% of consistency, right, is way better than 100% perfect. So can somebody what's a question I'm asking? Like, I would imagine that with a child with these types of disorders, that even 80% consistency is going to have a significant impact on the outcome versus trying to do it perfectly. And how do you handle it? Like, do you have to always be the one coming with the cupcake? Like, and how do you, this is a multiform question for you. How do you then prevent the child from feeling like they're different or excluded or like my kids would always say, "Mom, everyone else has soda. Why can't we have soda?" And then you feel like, are you putting on them? Are you now modeling for them that they have to be restrictive in their life to be healthy? Like, how's that balance? How did you handle that balance? Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
asking?
so, there's a and we'll get to that multi-pronged question piece.
Okay.
One is, you know, I I like to have fun. I'm gonna live my life and we're gonna have fun because otherwise what's the point? But, you know, when I'm a lot of our clients will do a paleo style diet to start
Mhm.
off with just because we want to try and remove all of these things that are really bothering them. So, it's a great example, but oh my gosh, we're doing paleo style diet, but my kid's birthday's coming up. What can I do? Well, you know what? Gluten-free, dairy-free cupcakes, there's mixes, there's Miss Vicky's frosting, like, there's all of these things you can use. Yes, it might have a little more sugar in it, but yeah, you're gonna be able to go out and have that cupcake. Make a dozen cupcakes and let the other kids at the party have it.
Mhm.
To make a dozen cupcakes and have a taste test at the party. "Hey, kids, which cupcake do you like the best?" So that you can make it fun. And I do think that there is a piece of it where you do have some kids just who feel like they're left out because I do hear it. But we start to have a conversation about you do know those kids in your class, like a lot of them are not healthy and a lot of them are taking medications and you know that what they're eating isn't healthy and their parents don't know that. And so I'm teaching you what is healthy. So I also
Mhm.
feel like there's a piece of that is like having a conversation with your kid from a young age about like what the rest of society is doing that's detrimental and why you're doing it this way. It gives them a lot better understanding. And they may not like it, and you may have kids that go out and wanna, have a swap a cookie at lunch with someone else in the room, but 9 times out of 10, you can usually tell. So, it's hard, it's not easy, and my whole goal with what I do is to give people all the tools they need. So, here's your meal plans, your recipe guides, use Find Me Gluten-Free app is fantastic. You guys
Yeah.
gonna travel, you're gonna have a good time, get on the Find Me Gluten-Free app. Use that, like, there are tools you can use out there to make these changes so much easier so that in 2 months' time, it becomes second nature. gluten free for me, gluten free for you. It's second nature. Like we don't even think about it. We know where we can go out. We know all.
Mhm.
So it's really about what are these tools we can give you instead of being like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Yeah, it's hard. Choose your hard. Do you want to watch your kids suffer? Or do you want to make these changes, which then become second nature over time?
Yeah, it really comes down to the commitment, right? How badly do you wanna get well, and the whole family doing it.
Yes, that makes
Right,
sense.
as a I'm gluten-free, it doesn't even phase me. Like, I'm dairy-free, it doesn't even phase me, but
Yeah.
my family isn't necessarily gluten-free and dairy-free. So for them, it's more of a struggle. Maybe it's not as much as an important thing to them. To me, my health is very important. It's way up in the priority list. A lot of people, it isn't. And so, I guess that does come down to deciding, like, how much do you want them to get well, but then balance that with not modeling obsessiveness? I guess that's kind of my question, because
Yes.
when you're modeling the obsessiveness of counting every single little thing, I mean, I was in the modeling industry, right? I
Yeah.
know I've been through eating disorders, I've been through putting myself down, low self-worth, thinking I have to be perfect, living in a perfectionist society. And so I wonder, like, when you're trying to educate people on being healthy, it also can cross that line of being obsessive. And that's a hard balance right there.
Well, and I think it also depends on the way that you look at what obsessive is too. Is it obsessive for somebody outside watching you and being like, "Oh my gosh, they're obsessive, like they're obsessive about it." Or is the fact that you are making these changes and they're critical changes for your kid's health, is that not obsessive on your end because you're doing everything you can to kind of change this for your child? So, it also comes down to a lot of like how you view other people looking at you. I think.
Beautiful answer. Great mindset shift there, right? Because it is how you
Yes.
look at the world.
Yeah.
Like, I'm teaching people the same way as go, okay, you're modeling this behavior, you brought on this behavior. But one thing you can change is how you see the world, how you interpret the information. You can change that. That's one thing that's changeable. You can't change what other people think. You can't change the stress around you. You can't change pretty
Yeah.
much everything around you. It's completely out of your control. The only thing you can change is how you react to it, right? Is how you bring it in, how you interpret it, and then what you say, do, or act, right? And so it is just changing. Obsessive can be good if
Yeah.
it's bettering your health, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, how much are you willing to commit to your kid? I think it's really actually a beautiful way to look at it. So how do you, or do you, help the parents deal with the stress of going through this process?
Yeah, so we actually have somebody who is comes in once a month and we do some mindset work. So I do have a mindset person that comes in and kind of works with the parents. And I work with them too and we have active conversations about like this is what I did. This is how I did it. This is how I was successful. So we're able to give them a lot of really good tools and resources that they can then use to make those same changes themselves. I mean, there's so many good, like we talked about, finding gluten free. There's so many good
Yeah.
tools. So yes, like working the parents through that is definitely key as well because they struggle. It's not easy to change everything in your home and when you have somebody on your team who is the doubting Thomas, it makes it even harder. But
Mhm.
you learn to adjust for that. So, like, my husband is not gluten free
Mhm.
or dairy free, but like when I cook, I try to make things where, like, let's say I'm going to make a big thing of like meat and
Mhm.
potatoes. And here I'm going to give you the cheese on the side and the sour cream on
Yeah.
the side. And we can have it gluten free, dairy free over here. And you can take your little bowl and add whatever you want. So you also have to learn like there's alternatives and you can keep the other people in your house happy as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I
I
think once
Yeah.
you get these kids feeling good, then they're like less likely to eat the things they shouldn't eat or do the things they shouldn't do.
Yeah, because they feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you brought up an interesting point because my husband eats differently than I do, and I think as wives, we try to control them, and we say, "No, you need to be gluten-free. No, you can't have the cheese. No, you can't have the sour cream," and that just adds to our stress level, and the bottom line is it's their health, it's their choice. You're going in as a family. You can make accommodations for that. I do the same thing. I say, "If you want that, go buy it, put it in the fridge. I'm not gonna eat it, but you can," and I think there's a certain aspect of letting go so that you can focus on what you're trying to accomplish with your health and your child's health, even if not everyone is 100% on the same page.
Yeah.
And we have to let that go sometimes. Our husband may not, or even when we're bashing the husbands here. I know many husbands who are far more committed stuff than the wives are. So we'll we're not bashing the husbands,
Oh, no, not
but
at all.
one partner versus the other, one's in, one's half in. Um, and I think we have to often as women learn how to let go. We have to
Yeah,
we have to put our energy towards what really matters in the long game and let go of some of the short game, you know?
totally.
Yeah. So tell people, where do they find you?
Yeah. So we are on Instagram and Facebook and the internet. So you can find us at regenerating.health, not .com, .health. You can find us on Instagram at Regenerating Health, and you can find us on Facebook at Regenerating Health. So not too hard to find.
And you have some fun on your social media, don't you?
I do have some fun on my social media. It's getting better. I would like to have more fun, but then people would know that I'm pretty wild.
Okay, how are you? I like wild.
I know.
I do think, and I know you agree, that authenticity, giving yourself permission to be
Yes.
human, allowing to laugh over the funny things that other people would think were traumatizing, and you're like, "Yeah, well, that happened," you know? I had to come out of Target and leave the Minecraft toy there with a screaming kid under my arm. A lot of
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh my god," and you're like, "Oh, ha, that's a funny story for Thanksgiving." I mean, how you show up in your life and allow yourself to be human,
Mhm.
that is something, just knowing you for a couple years that I have, something that you have an innate gift to do. You are innately human. You show up as you. And so if I could give you any advice, I would say get out there on social media and let them see that you are wild. Do it. And everyone here that's watching, I want you all to follow her and I want you to encourage her to allow her to just be her because you teach that. You live that.
Mhm.
But for some reason, you're afraid to show it. Don't be afraid to show it, girl.
I know, and your social media just has gotten so funny, and you and I had this conversation when we saw each other in September. So, yes, I do need to embrace more of that, and we do have some fun, and I share some funny stuff on the
Mhm.
stories with the dog and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
it's certainly not doesn't capture me in, like, reality, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you are resilient. You
Thank you.
do manifest trust, intuition, empowerment, and transformation. And I couldn't have picked 5 better words for you than those words you picked for yourself. And like I said earlier, thank you so much for sharing your experience with the world and helping so many parents transform their kids' lives and their lives and really making a change in the world, even though sometimes we feel so small, like we're not doing anything for anybody. Maybe we help one family, but there's millions and millions of families. That one family is really important, and I hope you see what a blessing you are to them because you truly are. So thank you for taking your time to explore this underserved community, really.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been more of this you can't see the forest through the trees. When we started out, it was just doom and gloom and it was scary and it was hard and it was horrible to watch your child suffer. But to be on this other side, and I really went back to school simply to help him. It wasn't to do all of the things that I am doing now. But when people started seeing such changes in him, they really started to encourage me. You need to help other people because you know what you're doing in this area, and so it really was this blessing in disguise. I did not think it was gonna end up where I am, and here I am. So,
Passion will take you.
well,
So as we wrap up, I just want to say, what are you going to be modeling to the world as we move forward?
I'm gonna do better about being myself on social media, first of all, so thank you for that. I'm gonna continue to do what I do as far as modeling to parents, like, I'm gonna help them walk through these stages. I'm gonna help them see the forest through the trees, really and continuing to model for my kids, this healthier lifestyle, diet, the way that we live, really trying to encourage those around me to embrace those things because overall you're going to feel so much better and so much happier in your life.
I love it. I love it. Well, I absolutely love spending time with you. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here today and just being real.
Thank you. It was a great time, so thank you for having me.
Ah, it's my pleasure. I will see you soon.